All right, so I do want to introduce our next speaker in the lineup, and that's Victor Vansteenkiste. And Victor is final year master student studying master in computer science here at KU Leuven. And he's actually doing his graduation thesis, his master thesis under my guidance. And as part of that, as you can see, he's actually studying the privacy and security of different types of Web3 wallets in a very intriguing way, but I'll leave that to Victor to tell you about.
Thank you, Professor. So as Professor Van Kutsum said, my name is Victor. I'm a blockchain enthusiast. I once bought an NFT for 100 euros. I think it's worth 50 cents now. I think we've all been there. But today I'll, excuse me, today I'll walk you through some wallet security and privacy. But maybe first off, a small trip down memory lane. Well, I wasn't born yet, but let's go back to the start of the internet. I think it was about in the 1990s, actually a bit before that, with the start of the ARPANET. But I think Mr. Tim Berners-Lee was the real founder that actually coined the term the World Wide Web in 1991, to be precise. And browsers launched, and the internet became something accessible by everyone. But if you wanted to create something, you had to be like this lovely gentleman here. You had to create your own infrastructure, launch your own website on your server. So actually, the first web was decentralized. There were no centralized players. But then, fast forward 10 years later to the 2000s, and actually also today, with the rise of social media, Facebook, YouTube, and people were actually enabled to create content on the web, not only through like posting a post on social media, creating a video on YouTube, but it was never easier to actually also create your own website and deploy it using a cloud service like AWS or Google. But the reason it was so easy is actually because the internet became centralized. Nobody likes putting on servers and nobody has that technical skill. So now people are very connected and are very connected to the internet, and they love creating stuff. But because we all like stories and we all like creating content, this creates a lot of data. A lot of data in the hands of the big tech corporations. I think a statistic was that around 65% of the total internet infrastructure is actually contained by the big tech players. And also a fun fact, more than 60% of the world population is on social media. And everybody likes it, nobody asks questions until a few years ago we had the Cambridge Analytica scandal. This is the first time that actually general public became worried about their privacy. Some backstory, Cambridge Analytica, they used millions of Facebook profiles to create psychological profiling, to create targeted ads for the US elections and also the Brexit elections as well. And our friends at Netflix, they decided to actually create a beautiful documentary called The Great Hack. And this went pretty much viral. And people started realizing they were a product and that the system was pretty much broken. And in the background, Web3 was gaining traction. But this was a real pivotal moment as people really started caring about the privacy and about the future of the web. So the future of the internet, I think this is a synonym for Web3. I think the audience pretty much knows what it is, but a quick recap, I think the main goal, or at least how I understand it, is actually re-empowering the users, that people are owning their own data, they know what's being shared, that privacy is actually in their hands and not in the hands of the bad guys, let's say, Facebook, Google, Amazon, etc. And for that, you have like your own central online identity, and that's how you play in the internet. So in order to make that work, you have two major components. First off, as mentioned in the previous talks as well, you have your decentralized applications. These are applications that run actually on the chain. Their backend is coded in a smart contract. And then the second important part is your wallet. And this is essentially your online identity. So instead of using an email address and password, your identity is actually contained in a public-private key pair. And this is all stored within a wallet. But the funny thing is about the pure theoretical concept of Web3, if you really want a decentralized web, we're all going to be like this guy. Remember him? We all have to create our own nodes so we're really in control. But as so often in the world, history is repeating himself. Our friend Moxie Marlinspike, he's the founder of Signal, he had a famous quote, and I truly believe in that. If there's one thing I hope we've learned about the world, it's that people do not want to run their own servers. But how is Web3 ever going to work? Well, introducing the central node providers in Web3. These are central node providers that actually contain a pool of nodes, similar to AWS and maybe Google as well. And they actually provide dApp creators to actually just launch their dApps very easily without having to set up their own nodes. Sounds very good, and of course this is a natural thing, this is not necessarily a bad thing, but you should know it does come with some privacy issues. So here comes my thesis then. So my thesis is actually largely based on a paper by a Usenix paper called "Is Your Wallet Snitching on You?" And they did like a deep study on, they captured requests and to see like what is being shared, but they focused on MetaMask. So for my thesis, what we're doing is actually a large-scale analysis of 10 most used wallets and a large range of the most popular dApps. And we built actually a sort of a web scraper based on the Puppeteer library. It's a library created by Google, which actually allows you to capture requests and analyze them. And I think the main goal of my thesis is to create a comparative study between the different wallets that users can use and to actually know what is being shared and to definitely demystify the fact that Web3 is private because in a sense it's not, you still have to be careful, and I believe that's a very large misconception. Especially, we all know Bitcoin started because it was a currency, so you could illegally buy drugs online because you're not traceable. I think that reality is not the case anymore, and I feel like not a lot of people are quite aware of that. So what are we actually doing? Well, this is a very basic representation of how the interaction between wallets, dApps, and the node providers work. So you have a wallet and your dApp, they communicate with each other through an object that is injected in the browser. And then your wallet and your dApp, they each separately communicate with a node provider of choice. For example, MetaMask and Infura, they're from the same company, so naturally they communicate with each other. But then here you also have requests to other things. For example, front ends of the dApp, they're usually hosted on normal Web2 technologies, and those requests also happen. And actually what we do, we capture all of them. And we capture them so that we can look for certain patterns, certain things that are being shared, things that shouldn't be shared. Because as you know, whenever you share something to a node provider, they actually have access to that and they can save stuff. For example, to give it some more context, these are some funny things that actually node providers have, and they also communicate it, but I think it's something that nobody actually knows. I think by law, an Infura and Alchemy, they have to track your IP address just in case if any suspicious behavior does come across you and the government comes calling, then they have to be able to show you your IP address so you could be trackable. I'm not sure if that was the real intention of Web3, to be fair. And also all of your transaction metadata is also stored. And for example, imagine I connect to a dApp and I have a MetaMask wallet with multiple accounts. Often those accounts are merged together in a request, and then people can actually see, oh, those two accounts belong to me. And what an Infura can do then actually take that, figure out how much money I have, and maybe do some targeting ads on me as well, which does not seem quite Web3 vibes to me. And maybe a fun thing about Tornado Cash, it's been mentioned here before. Tornado Cash is actually one of the most private crypto coins out there. And I think in the beginning it was used a lot for illegal practices. But actually what happened is the government, again, a very centralized party, they told these node providers, okay, you cannot handle transactions with Tornado Cash anymore, which meant that Tornado Cash was actually blocked on these main node providers, which meant you couldn't do any transactions with Tornado Cash. But I think this year they were actually delisted, so you can still use them now. But there was a time that the government had to intervene. And I can't stress this enough, but you can feel the paradox between centralization and decentralization. And also a last one as well. I think I wouldn't call us all nerds, but we are enthusiasts. If people see that you have a wallet object in your browser, they can use that to, again, do some profiling and do some effective advertising to you. So what my thesis is all about is actually to make more awareness and to make a comparative study between the wallets and to actually make people aware that actually Web3, theoretically it's very good, but in order to make it work in the industry and to scale it, we do have to take some privacy measures. Thank you for listening.